Order, and I will read the script from the governor. Good afternoon, good evening. The open meeting of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to outbreak COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the NPNEDC is convened by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please be sure to properly leave the meeting when your matter has been discussed upon final adjournment. Meeting materials, all supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business, ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. So I just want to just get a roll call vote of everyone that's here. So I'll go through the list and then we'll start with the agenda. So just, I guess, just respond in the affirmative. Fritz McClure.
Aye.
Judith Wagner.
Aye.
John Trudell.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Maureen Phillips.
Aye.
Bert Johnson.
Aye.
Wendy Hudson.
Aye.
Jack Gardner.
Aye.
And that will aye. Thank you very much. Staff, Andrew.
Here.
Leslie Snell.
Here.
Rob McNeil.
I'm here.
Thank you, Rob. And Eleanor.
Here.
And is Billy on? I didn't see him.
No, we're not having Derek Schuster or Billy this time. Billy.
Oh, so Derek's not going to be here either? I'm
No.
sorry. I said that he was, and I didn't know that.
Well,
So
that's on me. I added him to the list because one never knows, but we really don't need him. No.
That's the first time he hasn't been on for a while. Okay, and do we have Billy? Is Billy Cassidy going to be on tonight?
I don't know. I gave him the Zoom link in case he wanted to come on. I think he might.
Is Lee Saperstein on?
Yep.
Yes, he is. Here he is.
There he is. Thank you, Lee. And Henry Terry is here, and Mark Forsyth, I believe, is here as well.
Yes, I'm going to rename him. That's Doc Forsyth.
Oh, is that what that? Okay. And then Mary Longacre, I believe. Thank you, Mary. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Quorum we have, obviously. I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Can you repeat for me who did that? It's always hard to tell who got that first.
Bert with the motion.
I think Dave Iverson moved the agenda.
No.
Correct?
Okay.
No. You didn't? Okay. I missed
Bert.
that then. Bert moved the agenda, and who seconded?
Christie.
Thank
Christie.
you.
Okay. All those in favor, Fritz,
Aye.
Judith,
Aye.
John Trudell,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Bert,
Aye.
Wendy,
Aye.
and Jack.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. Minutes of July 27th. Does anyone have any questions, comments, adjustments, changes? Otherwise, I'll accept the motion to approve July 27th.
Motion to approve.
That was Fritz, I believe,
Jack.
Eleanor.
Jack.
And Jack seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so all those in favor, Fritz,
Aye.
Judith,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Maureen. Sorry, Maureen, you're muted.
All right.
Aye.
Yeah, thank you, sorry. And Bert,
Aye.
Wendy,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you all. Andrew, so on this next item, and Rob, we really appreciate you being here. I just want to have Andrew introduce this item for us, to give us some background and, you know, where we are now in this, with this item.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission members. I'm happy that Rob is here tonight to walk you through some of the projects that are that he and I are actively working on. As you know, we both have suffered a loss of staff during this time of the COVID problems and with Mike Burns, our transportation planner's departure. But we have several active projects underway and we are moving those forward. So in your packet, we're going to walk through 3 of those projects at least, and maybe talk about a 4th one. And then Rob can also update you on the many things that he's doing and answer your questions. So I appreciate him being here tonight. So I'll just pass it over to him.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to the members of NPEDC to having me on tonight to provide this update. I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be working with Andrew. And we've been coordinating prior to Mike's departure. We were meeting pretty much weekly, getting DPW and planning input into these important transportation projects. And I would say congratulations are in order for the 4-day bike path. That's pretty great. So thank you. So we'll jump right into Orange Street. Not sure if you can make that on the screen, Eleanor, but the Orange Street bike path is a continuation of the in-town bike path. We've been working together to really conceptualize what some of those changes may look like. And our consultant, VHB, was involved and has been involved with many of the in-town bike path improvements through the years, including pavement markings from the Rotary all the way through to the Stop and Shop parking lot that we incorporated a couple of years ago. As you've probably seen this year, we have freshened up those lines with thermoplastic and some of those preformed sharrows. We've incorporated some additional sharrows down at the Washington and Francis intersection to mostly direct bikers on the way out of town to the new Katsu Springs bike path. So this stretch here from along Orange Street is the intended multi-use path and roadway realignments and adjustments. The sort of in-town bike path from Milestone Rotary to the Goose Pond Lane bike path there at Consu Springs. So the orange lines represent essentially what the edge of pavements will look like. We're starting to take a look at some of the adjustments that could be made against the fixed points, mostly buildings or other things. We've started conversations with some of the abutters, and we'll continue to do that. So I'm not sure if there's going to be any specific questions, but part of this is to sort of pick up at the Rotary where the new Monomoy to Milestone Rotary bike path currently ends, and pick that up there, run the path to the north side of Orange Street, down through the Landmark House property, and then bring it back out onto Orange Street around East Creek into its own dedicated bike lane across the Marine Home Center, and then connect to the existing dedicated bike lane over at Spruce Street. And
Right.
that would take you right into Goose Pond Lane. So obviously that's going to take some shimmying and adjustment of Orange Street itself. So we're working through the details of that to be able to shift the road and the existing sidewalk to the south slightly along the entirety of that alignment.
Does anyone have
Mr.
any
Chairman?
questions for Rob?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Andrew, sorry.
And just to point out a couple of things of what Rob just went over. So, obviously our tightest area is between East Creek and the railroad bed. And that's, we have buildings fronting very close on both the north and south side of the street. So it's really important that we have, our property owners working with us, and that we have our selectmen or county commissioners, because we may have to take additional easements along this route. It's a very difficult area to get through. Once we clear East Creek Road, then that's the opportunity to move it, off of the road, and connect into the existing crosswalk system that's at the Rotary. So I just want to let you all know, this is very preliminary. We have not had public hearings or anything. This is really just staff level review at this time. But if there are any reactions, we'd like to hear them at this point.
I can't see anyone's hands right now, so does anyone have anything? Just speak up first. There we go. Thank you, Honor, very much. Does anyone have any questions? I certainly have a couple. I just don't want to jump right in until someone else has any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, John, go ahead.
I know a lot of thought and planning had gone into this, and I'm just maybe a little late to the game with an idea, but I know everything is tight there with the bike path, telephone poles, Marine Home Center connections there. And right now we really we have a sidewalk on one side. And I'm just wondering, with the conditions that we have, it seems like most of the problems that are arising are on the Marine Home Center side. I just wonder, was there thought to eliminating the sidewalk and pavement on the other side? We'll call it the Henry's Jr. side. And by picking up that, eliminating all the sidewalks down there and adding it to the Marine Home Center side, that's really the side where we want that sidewalk to be on. And in essence, we wouldn't be trying to fit two sidewalks on both sides of the street, but just consolidating, using that extra space that we gain on the Henry's Jr. side, the gas station side, and allotting it towards the Marine, and so that it connects to Goose Pond and all the way down.
So Mr.
And
Chair,
I just didn't know if anybody had a comment or if that was a consideration.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, we are picking up, we have to reconstruct the sidewalk on that side of the road. And we are going to, I don't think we want to eliminate it. There's enough pedestrian traffic using that right now that we really need both. I think it's our feeling that we need both, and that's really consistent with what the selectmen have asked for. But we are going to borrow land on that side, which requires it to go inboard a little bit to give us the room that you're talking about on the north side. So again, it's threading the needle through there, but I think, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we found that we're able to have enough area to do both.
That's what we're shooting for right now. Yes.
Yep. There's some impacts at the gas station. There's some impacts with the house across the street. So there, again, it's really tight in there, but basically what you're thinking of is what does have to happen is we have to gain some room on the south side.
And those properties on the south, Andrew, are all sort of in flux there. Some of them are, you've got the 2 lots, then you have the gas station, which is sort of open there in the front. And then I believe there's a little bit of space in front of those other buildings that would, the real estate office and Marines of a building there. It's not like they're right on the street. So I think what you're saying is true. There's no perfect answer to this. Was there work already done, Andrew, that we're sort of utilizing from the original plan? Or is this sort of a fresh start to what didn't work out? Or I'm just sort of checking in on that.
No, this plugs into the work that was already done. So
okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. Okay, does anyone else have any questions about this? This is good stuff. Kind of trying to find a way to sort of continue.
Mr. Chair, I would just say that this is certainly a concept level. So if there are comments or questions that come after this from many of the members, if they have a chance to dig through the plan.
My suggestion, Rob, Andrew can dig this up in the office. And the project for the land that's next to Dave Street, that lot, there was some pretty good concepts in that plan before it got pulled to sort of turn right on Dave Street, giving up a little bit of sidewalk space. There was some pretty good stuff in that plan to widen that sidewalk out. So I'm sure that will happen with the future use of that land, something similar to allow trailers, small lawnmower trailers and things to turn right up Dave Street. So that'll all, tie in, I'm assuming. But that's right where the street starts to get wider. Right after Dave Street, it's a whole different ball game after that, So got plenty of land. Okay, well, thank you very much, Rob, for that. And are there any other?
So we're going to move on to Tom Nevers bike path.
Okay, great.
Eleanor, if you could bring that up, that is sheet 22 in the packet.
There we go.
So Tom Nevers bike path has certainly been on the agenda for some time for capital projects discussion. There's been a renewed interest in the past couple of years from the folks in Tom Nevers to really help prioritize this plan or this concept. So we started working together with the most recent improvements along Milestone Road that are reflected in this, where the path actually goes up and meets the existing path. And that might still be adjusted. There's some talk of doing sort of a rest area similar to the dedicated spot on Pulpus Road, the one little bike path rest area that's dedicated to Mr. Young.
Right.
Starting to develop more of those around town. Some in this location here, seems like a helpful one, as well as down at the Milestone Rotary, sort of where all the bikes seem to come together before they disperse. So the path itself would essentially travel down the east side of the right-of-way, and that was chosen mostly because of the limited amount of driveway crossings and intersections. We're still working through some of the details with our consultant, but again, we're at still a very conceptual stage. And this would tie down at the Town Nevers Field into whatever configuration ultimately gets approved by the select board for future redevelopment of that. And if folks are looking to find out what that might look like down at Tom Nevers Field, under the projects and developments on the town's website, there's the most recently published Parks and Rec master plan that was completed last fall and presented to the Parks and Rec Commission. They have made a recommendation to the select board to move forward with the recommendations held in that plan, but that's yet to be presented to the select board due to COVID-19. So I hope that will move forward this coming fall. In the meantime, we are advancing the concept here so that we can bring that to the Tom Nevers folks and ultimately back to select board for endorsement.
Anyone have any questions for Rob or Andrew?
Just a comment to Rob. Bert Johnson. I've been president of the Property Owners Association out there for about 25 or 30 years now. And the original developer showed a bike path on that east side of Tom Nevers Road. And he was supposed to have deeded that to the town, but the planning board at that time let him go and didn't realize that he hadn't given it to him. So we never got it. But I've been trying to keep people from putting tennis courts and other things in the way of where that bike path was supposed to go. You should have a pretty easy trip down through there on that east side of the road.
Well, thank you for that. One of the things that we're also considering, I think that the commission should understand, is due to, that there's a difference between designing and then maintaining and operating. And as part of what I've inherited with the bike paths, just under 35 miles around the island, there's a combination of things going on here that sort of come into play when we contemplate the new ones. And that mostly entails, getting property right to make sure that we have adequate sight distance at intersections, and we have the right to go and maintain those sight triangles, so we can cut the vegetation back and make sure that the crossings are appropriate for bicycle and vehicular and pedestrian safety. So we're factoring a lot of that in to plans now. That I think the early versions of bike paths here on the island didn't necessarily focus on that. Another thing we're talking about is that the original bike paths, as were endorsed by Mass DOT, were essentially 8-foot wide paths. Yep. And currently that whole process has matured. The use of these has matured and sort of runs the gamut from people pushing strollers to bicyclists to all kinds of new skateboard-looking contraptions, some motorized, some not, to people rollerblading. So there's your body is using more of that space than was originally contemplated by the state when it was an 8-foot, in some cases, single lane bike bike lane. So we're updating and upgrading, making plans to do that island-wide with all of our paths to get them to the minimum, at least to the minimum, 10-foot wide for multi-use paths. And we're just completing an island-wide assessment of not only the condition of the paths to prioritize improvements for repairs, but to take a look at where those widenings could and should take place, along with updating signage and pavement markings to make sure that we have uniformity with our safety messaging to all the users. So that's on the horizon as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Andrew, go ahead.
So just a couple things. We're putting together a list of all the property owners along here. So there's roughly 25 on this side of the road. All the property is registered land, so it's all land court. So we're able to get, as Bert said, there's some places where there's a no disturb easement that affects the property owners. There's some place where we actually have a 20-foot wide bike path, and then some place where we don't. So thank you, Bert, for keeping people away from that edge. The other point is that there are numerous telephone poles on this side of the road, and undergrounding is really unlikely to be an option here. It would add significantly to the cost here. We're trying to work around them and keep at least the constructed path wherever we can within the road, the actual road layout, which is, I think it's 50 to 60 feet through here. So again, there still may be easements needed for small slivers of the bike path, perhaps, and maybe for construction and grading on the interior. But and then for a standard like 5-foot shoulder that would run alongside the edge of the pavement. But that's consistent with our other bike paths like Pulpus. So I think it's looking good actually for this. And then hopefully we'll be advancing this along for the public hearings and notice to come. So.
Andrew, can I just ask a quick question for the rest of the commissioners as well, probably thinking this. But do you think that what would be a potential tip project if we can get it to be shovel ready? This one here, would it be in your eyes?
Yes.
Okay, because this seems like this might work a little easier than some of the other ones we've had.
I don't think the in-town
wetlands.
The Orange Street one would be very difficult.
Yeah, too many people involved with that. Too slow. There's no wetlands here or anything. There's no like shad bush and things like that are going to slow things down. And in the Tom Nevers one, I wouldn't think.
Well, there is natural heritage out here, so
up by Old Tom Nevers turn somewhere in there.
There's certain stands of, and again, this has affected some of the other bike paths where there's been stands of the oak trees that have a certain worm that lives in them.
Oh.
And then on the other hand, some of that has been sacrificed for, birds and hawks to hunt in. So we'll have to see. That's an issue that will come out as we advance into permitting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Yes, John.
Andrew just touched on this, and I look at this as being a really golden opportunity. If we can get through all these easements with this bike path and it's an opportunity for something like utilities, and instead of reinventing the wheel, ripping up the roads, is there anybody like Verizon or Comcast that would look to this as an opportunity to actually front the money, knowing that this could be something 10, 20, 30 years down the line, even putting underground, conduit. They have a clear shot from Milestone straight right through all the way around Tom Nevers. And we're doing the tough part. We're getting through all the easements. So incorporating a utility easement into it before we lay down the pavement, if it's not going to cost the town anything, a utility company might look for this. And I know Tom Nevers is lug 3, mostly 3-acre zoning. Even the undersized non-conforming lots are 1 acre. It's perfect for septics and wells, but who's to say that, even a water line out there that is not used right now, but while you have the opening or the chance to, put these utilities on a clear stretch when you're disturbing that area, I don't know, it might be an opportunity to talk to some of the utility companies and they might flip the bill, penny wise, dollar foolish. They might be saving money right now.
You're saying, John, run a conduit or
Under the bike path.
multiple conduits just to get it in while it's open.
Might not be functional right now, but it's a minimal expense now. And if they're looking down the line, and here we are talking about the L8 and 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, we were talking about the new poles and how thick they are. And we're really, we want it underground, but these poles are probably going to last 20 or 30 years as well. This might be an opportunity to go below the ground instead of having poles along there, because we're disturbing that. We're getting the easements. We're going to be disturbing it as far as excavating, putting pavement down. We're really making a clear shot for that entire Tom Nevers Road. And it might be just a conversation with Comcast or Verizon, or even, thinking about Wanacommet Water to run a water line down there. We did this to Hummock Pond, even though they had wells, and the systems that they had going all the way out to Hummock Pond with their reverse osmosis. And, this is a way to throw a water line down there. If it's not used, so be it, but it's really small money right now with the opportunity with that run.
Mr. Chair, I just mentioned that to John, just to let him know that we do coordinate with the utility companies on a monthly basis. They are aware of any and all proposed projects that the town has either ready to go to construction or in the pipeline for concepts like these. So they definitely are aware of any of these projects that they are interested in either getting involved with up front, exploring opportunities to expand or upgrade or update any of their existing pipelines, or even just doing outreach for new services prior to any of these improvement projects happening, because we're going to get into pavement moratoriums once you put the expense down. So yeah, I think it's an important opportunity not to be missed, but it's something that I think the town would be expecting, specifically in this case, that the utilities, if they were interested, they would step forward and foot the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, to Rob.
Yes. Yeah, Bert.
All the utilities on both sides of that road, on all the side streets, are all underground. The only place that's above ground is on that road. I mean, both sides of the street are underground. It would make sense for them to start thinking about putting that road all underground, so when hurricanes come, we don't lose power out there. Maybe they just haven't thought about it. Maybe Rob can rattle their cage and say, here's a chance for these guys to save some money down the road.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
yes, Andrew, go ahead.
So you all should know that Rob started this conversation with the utilities, and I think it's really been great to open that dialogue about more coordination with them. I've sat in on, I think, only one of those so far, but that's really an initiative that he started, and I think it's really been positive. I think we certainly can raise it at this stage with them. And I do, John, I like the idea Rob mentioned to me earlier too, if we're in doing takings, we ought to think ahead and sort of do it all at once, rather than go back again and again. So I do like that idea, to incorporate that in, and then we can get back to you later on the underground. But I don't know. I mean, we might, if we really want to do something like that. Other places have done fundraising, like Low Beach. There may need to be some sort of financial commitment that comes from area residents. Just saying.
All right. So if anyone else has any questions, we'll move on to the next plan or the next concept.
Mr. Chair, the next project here we're conceptualizing is Sparks Avenue, Pleasant Street, and Williams Lane. Eleanor, you could probably go right down to the proposed work starting on let's see, page 40.
Okay.
So this basically builds off of the Four Corners concept roundabout. That's what you see pictured on the west side of the plan on the left. And so our designers have tied right into that. So Williams Lane, and this is still very conceptual, but Williams Lane, the intent of that update or upgrade will be to carry a sidewalk from the north side of Sparks Avenue all the way down to Pleasant Street. Sparks itself will have a multi-use path running along the entire south side, essentially. And so for the most part, we're sticking to the right-of-way that's there. There's not a lot of expected takings at this point. Sorry, I'm just trying to navigate with a picture here. We're dealing with similar, so safety improvements may include things like speed tables for the crosswalk to the Boys and Girls Club, as a for instance, to eliminate the Belgian block approach.
Yep.
I don't know what you want to call them, those rumble strips, and go with a more modern raised crosswalk speed table at the Boys and Girls Club. We can go to the next set of pages along Sparks. If you could advance that, Eleanor, thank you. So this shows the ramp up, the speed table, and the ramp down in roughly the center of the page, just to the right of Sparks Avenue. That's the crosswalk to the Boys and Girls Club. And it shows a widened sidewalk converted to a multi-use path 10 feet wide on the south side. You can see that paralleling the street. What we've started to do in this vicinity of the Boys and Girls Club is to cheat the north side of Sparks Avenue, the edge of pavement, slightly into the frontage along the Boys and Girls Club as we go to the southeast. And that allows a little bit more room for the multi-use path to make it around the existing utility poles on the south side. We can go to the next page, please. The red double dash lines are the existing right-of-way as a reference. So coming through Sanford Road, there's a slight difference between the existing edge of pavement and the proposed along the north side. Again, trying to ease up some space between the existing utility poles on the south side along the cemetery and the proposed 10-foot wide multi-use path. I should point out that at the far right-hand side of this page is down at the far corner of Newtown Cemetery. And that is the pedestrian path that comes in from Cow Pond Lane.
Yep.
It brings a tremendous amount of people from First Way and from the school to center, Mid-Island. A lot of pedestrians through there, and DPW has worked with Conservation Commission and the Cemetery Commission and the local police to basically do some clearing through that area that has really helped with safety and security and giving people peace of mind that has noted a very high increase in the volume of pedestrians and bikes using that corridor. So that's helpful. And I think tying it into a multi-use path down at this location will just continue to encourage that use. Next slide. So continuing down Sparks, we would tie into essentially the existing sidewalk along the gas station across the front of the Cumberland Farms, and then continue on past the Stop and Shop. So there's existing sidewalk there now. The south side would be widened to the 10 feet multi-use path and keep going. And then we get down to the Sparks Roundabout. I want to do some things there, including a crosswalk to allow for loading. This is for the Downy Flake. Similar to downtown, some area for trucks that are providing services to area businesses to be able to load and unload. During busy traffic times, Sparks gets backed up with trucks just not having space to be able to go off the roadway into some of the area businesses. So where we can and where it's strategic to do so, we're taking a look at doing that. Also, the sidewalk that currently comes around at the roundabout itself is quite narrow. You've probably seen a lot of people on bicycles using the sidewalks through this area. We've gotten lots of feedback from people that are using the crosswalks, and they're telling us stories of getting stuck between the lanes, people not stopping for them and the like. So one thing that we're going to focus on through the roundabout is to really revisit these crosswalks. It's quite likely that we would be looking at doing raised crosswalks, both to continue to slow the traffic, to have people be forced to recognize and allow the bikes and pedestrians to utilize those crosses, and tie into just the whole idea of slowing the traffic so that it is able to cycle through and handle that volume. We have extended the project down to Newtown to include, essentially tie into the proposed future bike path there. And then we're continuing Sparks improvements all the way up to the proposed rotary improvements. And so same thing, south side will have a nice wide multi-use path. Next sheet. All right, this is bringing us all the way back to Pleasant Street at Five Corners. I'll throw out there, but we can come back to it. One thing that we're contemplating with the designer is to take a look at some of the earlier work that transportation planner Mike Burns had kicked around, including looking at Pleasant Street from Five Corners all the way to the roundabout Sparks Roundabout as a one-way corridor to allow one-way vehicular traffic and multi-directional bicycle and pedestrian traffic. Mostly because of the just extreme narrowness of the existing Pleasant Street corridor and its limited ability to handle all the current needs out there. Next sheet. So as we've seen on some previous sheets, the blue highlighted areas are showing potential right-of-way impacts. This Pleasant Street proposed 2 lanes of vehicular traffic, and it shows a sidewalk on one side, the south side only, tying in with the proposed William Street sidewalk that comes down. And then we'd be looking at flattening the curve or essentially teeing up the intersection there at Williams at Pleasant to continue the sidewalk and shorten up the crosswalk there to continue the pedestrian movements towards the center of town, to Mid-Island. Next sheet, please. All right, continuing up, we start getting into some of the other cross streets and the backside of the Boys and Girls Club, taking a look at, again, some potential impacts depending on which way we can move. We have some pinch points. Some are physical in nature as utility poles and the like, and others are environmental resources along Freedom Square. In the pharmacy area, we have some wetlands. And of course, we have a number of other things to consider during this whole process, mostly subsurface utilities. So we're going to be taking a look at any necessary upgrades to our existing subsurface utilities, water, sewer, and drainage. And of course, we reach out to all of our private utilities as well. So we'll have communications and electric taking a look at these at the same time. Next sheet, please. So as we start to approach Stop and Shop and Dave Street, we're starting to take a look at streetscaping, the current parking scenarios, and how we can best handle future parking in that concentrated developed area. So as we make that approach, you can see right now the concept is looking at the limit of the existing brick areas and starting to say, okay, we're going to transition into that sort of Mid-Island downtown, Mid-Island developed business area. Next sheet, please. So, okay, we're getting up to the newly created bus stop just to the west of Dave Street. There's a little bump out there for the bus. The bus stop itself, the enclosure is sort of ghosted out behind the proposed sidewalk serving it. But then there's a short crosswalk across Dave Street. There's potential right-of-way impacts along the Chicken Box, I believe the pharmacy, and right through Chin's Way and some of the businesses along that frontage. And essentially, we're looking at angled parking, angled on-street parking along Pleasant Street, again, to try to accommodate some of the higher turnover to all the businesses in this particular area. You may have, we should probably go to the next, we go to the next one. Let's go back to that number 50, please. So one of the things that we've taken a look at with the reuse of the fire station property at 131 Pleasant has been to look at consolidating the driveway access points, as well as creating additional on-street parking as much as possible. And if you frequent that area, you've seen that DPW has changed the signage and the lines to take away the loading area and some of the area that was basically there for the free movement of the emergency vehicles coming out of the fire station. So we've been able to reclaim some of that space along right on Pleasant Street for on-street parking. And we've given the loading zone on 131, the 131 Pleasant Street property for the liquor store there that's attached to Stop and Shop. They're now using a section of the parking lot. And so that's based on a lot of excellent feedback from people who have helped me understand a lot of what goes on operationally in some of these really sensitive areas that tend to be really impacted by traffic, particularly in the summer. And so those lessons learned come from users that are going through here and seeing all the different challenges, as well as public safety weighing in as well. So we get a lot of good feedback through the traffic safety work group, as well as people from this commission and many others out in the public. There's just one simple fix to be able to allow the free flow of traffic through here in the summer and minimize impacts based on some of these limitations that exist out there today. Next sheet, please. This is just a highlight showing all of Williams. We're still looking at some of the potential impacts along Williams for us to be able to put in even the minimal width sidewalk. Next sheet. That might be it. Happy to try to take any questions or try to answer any questions that you might have on any of that.
Does anyone have anything for Rob real quick? These are all just concepts, everyone, just so we all know, reminded of that.
I'm just appreciative, Mr. Chairman, that Rob's come in to show us all this stuff.
Exactly. I feel the same way. Rob, I just have a quick point on that angle parking idea that's been bandied around now for a little while. I'd suggest Chins to West Creek is sort of the spot that's sort of the easier of the, especially with, that dead space by, Lucky's or whatever we're going to be calling it next. It's just like cigarette butts and trash in there. And that from there to Chins, I don't know how many spaces you can get in there, but I would bet you could get 15 to 20. Chicken Box owns that parking lot over there, as you know, especially now with COVID. Everybody in the world knows that they own it now, that they probably didn't know until COVID. I just don't know what the layout is in there. How far in do we go from the curb or edge of the Chicken Box lot to Pleasant Street? Do you know?
Well, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Chicken Box parking lot there is actually a triangular piece of town land, which is the old railroad bed at the corner of Dave and Pleasant. So it's not as much as you think.
Not as much, meaning how much they own or what we
There's only
have?
so there's a 15-foot section that they own on Pleasant Street, and then it widens out. But more of that right of way is really owned by the town than by them. It will have an impact. It's pretty much shown on that sheet, because the sidewalk would be moved on the inside, at the northern side, inside of the parking. So that's designed to be public parking though as well. So
yeah,
it's like so their patrons can park there. I mean, that's converting some of this from this is my parking lot to this is the public's place to park is really, as you know, a goal of the Mid-Island.
Yeah. Sounds like we need to sit down with them, Andrew.
Yep.
Figure that out. Okay, great. I didn't know that. Sounds like the AMP lot. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Mary Longacre has her hand up.
Okay, Mary, sorry, I can't see you.
Thank you, Nat. I understand that these are concepts subject to change. However, it always makes me nervous when I don't see the elm tree represented at that 4 or 5 or 6 corners, however you're counting, intersection by the school. And so I would encourage whoever is creating the plans to make sure that elm tree is marked, both to assure the public that it's not being removed and also to allow the public to evaluate the proposal relative to the tree. I would really appreciate that. I can't tell from the plans if the hard packed cut across on that corner is intended to be paved, but I would be very concerned about any activity that might affect the health of the tree.
Certainly noted. I would simply say that as for this project, the Sparks Williams Pleasant project, Surfside and the elm tree are, if I'm reading you right, you're talking about the elm tree on Surfside.
Mm-hmm.
That it's completely outside of this project limits. So it's nowhere near. It's hundreds of feet away from our project.
That's what I can't tell from the plan. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Again, here we are at the concept stage, but I would like to hear if there's any, I think mainly the angle parking has been a discussion at least before the planning board for a long time. I'd like to hear if there's any objections to that or alternative suggestions. I really, I don't want to move forward on something only to hear later that somebody didn't like it or someone had concerns.
Judith, go ahead. I see you.
Thanks for pressing that, Andrew. I was wondering whether to speak to that or to wait till later, but I'm really concerned about angle parking there. I think there really are safety considerations. It's already very difficult for people to get across the street there. We now have 2 Island Kitchen with its farmers market and other kind of things going on there. I don't know, Rob, whether when you convene the safety committee or review things like that, what data you may have available. But I really think once that's introduced in that vicinity, there'll be more tendency to abuse it. And if people can't even park appropriately and stop and shop, I really have my doubts about how they park with anything more complicated than a right angle. I'm sorry.
Well, I would just say, they seem to figure it out on Main Street pretty well. And that's not even really well marked. I think it just becomes sort of, you know what to do when you get there. But, change, as we all know, change is quite difficult and comes to everyone a little bit differently. I think working on angled parking is something that Mike Burns and Andrew have been working on in this particular area for some time. If there's an opportunity for us to pilot this kind of an effort, try before we actually fully implement it, that might be something to go with as well, to see about, how people take to it, what kind of safety concerns it might be. That might be something that we can work on, even maybe along the sort of the least developed area, which is the chicken box. That's something maybe we could kick around and look at if the commission is interested in looking at that.
Could I just have two brief follow-ups? Rob, I commend you for your experimentation. I think when you did the mock-up rotary, that was helpful to let people kind of test and see what reality might look like in a setting where we really needed that. Here, though, it's two-way traffic, plus you've got side streets coming in. So at least I try to be open-minded, but I have serious reservations. That's just one person, but there it is.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
This isn't the first time I've brought this up, but being that we're just adding our comments, I guess my dream or wish list, and it might be more of a conflict than not, but my wish list would be to have a one-way. And if you just conceptually think of a one-way, maybe down Pleasant to Sanford, to the Sanford cut, and then have a one-way on Sparks coming around to the circle there, you eliminate the two-way traffic just for that little bubble area, and you're able to do the angled parking, and you're really not dealing with two-way traffic now backing in. You're really dealing with, when you look in your rearview mirror on the angle, you can see the car coming behind you, just one-way traffic. I think it just adds it adds to the flow of traffic, and it also adds more angled parking, and you actually would be eliminating an entire side, so you'd be able to put the angled parking on Sparks Ave. Again, it's just a thought, transportation, and you wouldn't have to extend it all the way to the new potential rotary or roundabout by the school. You would just use that little bubble between the existing roundabout and the Sanford boat building. So I know it's not a new idea. I've been discussing it for years. I throw it out when I can. I'm just throwing it out right now.
Can I just comment a little bit on this? Jack, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna talk about traffic safety the other day, right?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the angle parking. The angle parking,
Okay.
it's going to be striped in the street. Once you stripe that, it's different than Main Street. It's hard to park on Main Street now, even though we know it's angle parking. But once you put the stripes in the street there for the angle, you shouldn't have any problem getting in and out of there at all. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, angle, it makes you a marginal driver into a genius because you don't have to 90-degree. And it's just the backing out, but it slows people down. I mean, I've had a couple of near calls opening your door on Andrew's beautiful on-street parking in front of Stop and Shop that I love, by the way. I was a little skeptical at the beginning, but it certainly works. It's just, you got to watch what's coming. When you park angle, you don't have to worry about that, just the backing out. So, I mean, look, this is a big, dream here, but if I want to put our planning board hat on, everyone, for a second, with the whole thing with that restaurant and all the controversy over they don't have any parking, this angle parking solution sort of fixes that special permit issue that we have with them. As far as the one way, I've always been a fan of making Williams Lane to Five Corners one way towards Nantucket, and that's it, because the narrowness there gives you plenty of room for sidewalk and on-street parking down to, you could probably get on street all the way down to Gardner Perry Lane if we did that, possibly. But that was looked at traffic safety, I think, recently. Jack will correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was on the agenda a couple of months ago to look at. But anyway, that would be my, comment. I think angle parking is a great thing because it makes it easy for people to navigate. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
Mary Longacre has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Nat. An idea for consideration One of the difficulties with angled parking is when you have a small vehicle between two large ones. So perhaps those angled spaces could be signed for compact cars, or even perhaps you could have an electric vehicle charging station there, which would more or less limit it to compact cars. That's something that would make it easier to pull in and out, and also encourage people to be a little bit more energy efficient in their driving choices. I don't know if that would really work from the point of view of the businesses that are on that side, but I thought it was something I would mention in case it was attractive.
Mary, I will comment and say, but at the rate of speed we move, 50% of the cars will probably be electric by the time this gets done, so. That's the speed we move, but thank you very much for that.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So one thing that Rob and I had talked about before is, again, with his experimenting, to, maybe try a soft, with sawhorses. I don't know if any of you have ever been to York, Maine at all, where they seasonally adjust their traffic flow. And it's kind of similar to what John has mentioned, where they have kind of a round, they create a one-way almost circle around their town, where they do it with sawhorses, and, it's done, I think it may be permanent now, but it used to be pretty much, the sawhorses went up around Memorial Day, came down at Labor Day. And Rob and I have talked about whether doing some sort of a test, is now the right time, or is, should we wait, or what? So does any of you have any ideas on that?
Do we have the land to do a test, Andrew, available?
Yeah.
You do?
We do. Well, not for the angle parking, but more for the one-way flow right now.
I personally think we should have tested that section from, outdoor power to Five Corners this summer, but it's over now. But I think we should still look at that as far as that part goes. I'm not sure about all the way to Stop and Shop. I think that would be complicated.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Andrew, I think if you're ever going to experiment, going into the winter would probably be the best time, just as we had done or did with the roundabout over on Fairgrounds. It's less traffic. That would be a good test. And if it doesn't work in the winter, then I'm sure it's not going to work during the summer. But that would be my thought for timing.
Now, Christy has got her hand up.
Go ahead, Christy. Sorry, let me move over here.
That's okay. I was just going to comment that I'm all for testing, especially as we go into fall, and seeing if that one way would work. And I know this is all preliminary, but I would like to hear the feedback of BPAC with just being close to a roundabout with that angled parking. Is there any concern with that? But otherwise, I'm happy with trying to do a test and seeing how that works.
Andrew, can I just ask a question to follow up a little bit what Chris, you just said, made me think of something. Didn't we have an article at town meeting for improvements from Nantucket Auto Body to Connemara? Am I wrong? I remember something that we did. Was that article passed, or was that something? I just don't remember exactly what happened with that funding for that section for the sidewalk bicycle improvements.
I think what you're thinking is the contract that we have now, which is the complete streets. That's the complete streets funding that we're working. That's the Williams, Sparks, Pleasant that we're doing now. Okay. All right. And what about that money that we had from that approval? Is that still sort of pending on some type of work that's done in that lot, the Craig property lot? We had 750 grand or something, didn't we? I forgot. We did. That particular special permit is actually lapsed though, so I wouldn't be counting on that anytime soon. Okay. Nope, no problem. Just checking. Thank you. All right. Does anyone else have any questions for Rob or Andrew?
That, if I may?
Yes, Mary, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. I'm sure that Rob is aware, but there are 2 town trees planted on Pleasant Street alongside Lucky's. And so I'm not sure
Oh.
if they're planning to be removed for the parking spaces or if the spaces will be fit around them and how those trees will be, how their health will be maintained in that circumstance.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that
Yeah.
we made, the specific suggestion was to construct away from those trees. The original design would have impacted, and our suggestion was to move the parking spaces away so those trees would actually be in a better growing position.
So that's why you don't have it going to West Creek in this drawing.
Right.
Okay.
To build some area around them, because they're right now, again, as you said, the area is not very well taken care of, and
Yeah.
as Mary mentions, those trees are healthy and in pretty good shape.
And we can pick up land. I mean, we have a lot of opportunity on the other side of the road to add parking. So maybe we don't need to be as concerned about that area as much as I had thought originally. So, okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions before we move on to Somerset? I believe that's next.
Mr. Chairman, Rob sent me a proposal today, something that was worked on before when Mike was here, when Kara was here, is the extension of the bike path off of Prospect Street. So, Eleanor, I think you have the slide. We did not include this in your packet, but while we have you all here, we thought we might get your opinions.
Oh, this is it. Yeah, we've been talking about this for 14 years at Right Away Committee.
Right. So I think, as you know, so the Woodland Hills subdivision was designed in such a way that that road can be used by bicyclists. So it's not a separate bike path, but again, it's a dead end road. So it's designed, and it's designed to allow the public to walk through, to bike through. It has it blocks vehicles on the end, sort of right below where
Yeah.
Mill Hill Lane is.
Yeah.
And the triangle property there between Mill Hill Lane and the subdivision road, that's been purchased by the land bank. So there have been a couple different options developed. So option one, if you will, is kind of intended to follow. There's a walking path that kind of is already established there. Option two was to follow the road layout heading in an easterly direction. And then there was an actual set of plans that was developed on the next slide, Eleanor. Do you have, hold on. So this particular slide sort of followed along the dirt road. But again, it's not a very direct connection. It kind of goes in and out and is adjacent to a dirt road where vehicles are on it. So this one isn't my particular favorite, but I don't know if any of you all had any sort of comments or suggestions you might want to offer.
So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add to that. A lot of the feedback that we've been getting at Public Works has to do with essentially connecting, the entire west end of the island to the mid-island bike accommodations, and to be able to make a sweep across the entire island, you have to go through this just very treacherous Prospect Street section. And bicyclists are just not comfortable coming down, the south side of Prospect Street, having to join traffic at a really very, very awkward and difficult transition, and coming back and forth. We've all seen that kind of family and even experienced bicyclists having some real challenges in traffic there. So I would say, this is kind of a combination of things. We have to either find a way to make Prospect and Quaker wide enough for these kind of accommodations, or we have to find a different circuitous path to get us safely to Nantucket. So this link that Mike was working on comes off Prospect down this Old Farm Road, it's labeled, and then it would basically traverse, it would send bikes down Mount Vernon to the new Milk Street bike path. And the intent is to go halfway up the hill and cross over to Wynn Street and take Wynn under a new proposed improved Wynn over to Nantucket Road. So this is sort of the first piece in that puzzle. You know, again, I don't know how much effort has been made through the years to really take a hard look at Prospect and all the fixed or challenged points that are currently preventing widening. It's kind of obvious. There's some buildings and such along Prospect, particularly through the curve, and then we get down through the cemetery area. So there's a lot of there's a lot of challenges through that whole stretch that either need to be looked at in far greater detail and gone after a little bit aggressively, or we find this kind of alternate route and develop that so that it's a connected alternative.
Mr. Chair, Lee Saperstein.
Yes, Lee, there you go.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm speaking now off the agenda, but as Secretary of the Committee on Roads and Right-of-Way. We deliberated all of these alternatives, we, that is the committee, and if necessary, I can spend half a day looking for the minutes that support this. We're in favor of the plan that you see before you, except for the fact that it was proposed to us that the bicycle path would be alongside the dirt road and not coincident with the dirt road. And there's some logic to this because this dirt road leads to the historic Colored Cemetery, the back end of the hospital, and some land bank land, not to mention, of course, Mill Hill Park. So while there's a certain logic to cutting the triangle, keeping a separate path alongside North Mill Street was the one we favored, voted on, and passed on to Mike Burns, who I thought was making up a plan. So that's my offering to you. When you get to the point when Andrew brings this back, we'd be happy to come alongside and talk about it, we being representatives from the Committee on Roads and Right-of-Way. And by the way, Rob McNeil's latest comment on tying together the bike paths takes up about half an hour of each of our meetings as we try and figure out whom we should tell that this is really necessary. Matt's been there. Okay, that's my addition. Thank you.
Yeah. Rob, I had this feeling Lee was gonna talk about this. Rob, the other issue that was brought up over the years for this sort of getting up to this Old Farm Road was the material. Was it going to be dense grade? Were we thinking of having something that, you got to remember, I mean, I know that we have these new bicycles that have bigger tires, but we're going to have something that works, year round. So, for the most part. So I don't know what the plan was. I don't believe we ever had a plan to pave more than that path by itself closer to Stojack's house, as I recall. To actually pave a path up there. I don't believe we had a plan to do that other than in that one spot.
I will offer up that we considered the separate bike path, and we're looking at some form of final surface short of asphalt, but more than dirt.
Yep. Okay, Rob, I think it's your turn now. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I appreciate everyone's input. Again, it's, I understand many of these subject matters run the gamut of commissions, boards, and other entities. So it is certainly helpful because I try as I might, I can't make every single meeting. And it's always nice to understand what's happening and what the history is on a lot of these. I don't remember, and the Andrew might be able to refresh my memory on what the proposed surface was for this proposed path here. But I certainly think that it appears that the existing path, existing drive access through North Mill Street there's been effort made to keep the two separate. I'm not sure how distinguished that would appear in the field based on the improved cross-section, but certainly there's been an effort to keep the two separate until you get to the south side there at the turn.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so this was this plan calls for an 8-foot paved bike path. And I think this was, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the plan that was going to go out for bids. And it hasn't yet because again, due to change in personnel and everything else. So
that's right. I think the last thing we were talking about was widening to 10 feet. So it was a true multi-use path. We weren't comfortable really putting anything forward these days that's not at least the minimum multi-use path width.
And this is off the surface, so the unpaved roadway, this is outside of that, except where it crosses at the intersection of Mill Hill Lane and North Mill, with a fence in between. But
the only other thing I would suggest is the topography of which is the least steep, which route, whether it's phase 1 or option 1, option 2, or this one, which we'll call, I guess, option 3 at the moment. That was another issue that's come up over the years. Rob, way before you were here, when that multi-use path was put in and stopped at Stojack's right there before his property, there was a lot of negativity, path to nowhere, comments in the paper, things like that. Well, that's because there was nowhere else to go. And if we didn't do it, we wouldn't have anything to this day at all. So this is the worst spot on the island to try to figure out. This is worse than Orange Street, I can tell you that. So, I don't have a preference per se personally, except that I love the Wynn Street improvement plan because that was never discussed before that Milk Street extension path was completed. That was never really talked about. It was sort of going to be dumped. At least we're getting closer to Nantucket. That was basically it. So you got to talk. We have to talk to the Mill Hill Park people. Lee's knows who all these people are, and figure out the right thing. I mean, I think Andrew's point about North Mill Street, if North Mill is going to remain dirt forever, then that decision will help us with this decision, in my opinion. So that's it for me. Does anyone else have anything? No avid bikers want to chime in?
Dave Iverson has his hand up.
Dave.
Yes, sir. So I'm just trying to make this clear in my head. So we're talking coming from Nantucket to go to Mid Island with a bike path all the way, correct? Is that kind
of a connection, a way to connect?
So you come over on Wynn Street when that's improved, and then you come out by the graveyard. And so to hook up to North Mill, what's the plan with that? Through the graveyards?
It's Milk Street to Mount Vernon.
Yeah, so Saratoga,
Go right up
Saratoga.
that narrow hill,
Yeah.
get to Mill, which seems like that's kind of a rough street as well on a bike.
The occasional,
I
the
don't know
two
what
ways.
I mean, I ride that stretch every day to and from work. And typically I will just go through the graveyards. If I wanted to go to North Mill. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out in my head, so don't mind me.
You can go up Mount Vernon Street and then up over Chicken Hill.
Yes, exactly. But Mount Vernon Street's kind of an ugly street on a bike. It's narrow, cars coming up and down it. It's a hill. I think that's, I know we don't have a lot of options, but I think that's a rough one. So.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pose that it's, just to Dave, since he's a frequent user through that area. If you had the preference, would you work to improve the width to have a facility improved along Quaker and Prospect, or this circuitous route from Nantucket along Wynn, etc., to get you to the same spot?
I mean, I think that I feel like Quaker's almost an unworkable situation. I mean, you guys would know better. I'm sure you've looked into it. I mean, Wynn is almost a no-brainer. I think if you can widen it where it turns to dirt there, it's kind of before it goes down that little dip, that little narrow place right there is a little rough. So if that can get opened up a little bit, I mean, I think that's a fairly safe route, except for the crosswalk is coming out of Wynn and crossing the street there. The crosswalk is a little scary on a bike just because of limited visibility. But in all honesty, like if I wanted to go to Mid Island, let's say to the Stop and Shop, the safest, easiest way would be doing Wynn Street and then straight across into the graveyard. It's a flat stretch all the way over, and then on that narrow sidewalk down to the school. It would be the safest, less hilly route for most people. The only downside is the sidewalk is narrow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any connection between Millbrook the connection from Nantucket to Hummock Pond a little bit earlier, if there's a better straight run? And then once you get, so it would connect kind of the beaches if you're going to Nantucket to Hummock Pond, but also if you wanted to veer left, then you're on safe bike path from there.
Nothing that's been seriously considered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you all for weighing in on this. This has been going on for close to 20 years, Rob. So now you see why. So thank you. The next item is the Somerset Lane proposal.
And Mr. Chairman, I asked Rob if he would stick around for this. To have so we could get his input as well here. The commission should remember that Billy Cassidy offered to work on this design for us. This is on the west side of Somerset Lane between Raceway and Hummock Pond Road. The last time we looked at this, there was, according to Billy, there's been general support. There's a couple issues that have come up. Number one is with the Bartlett farm land. There's a deed restriction, a conservation restriction that we may have to overcome to put the bike path on this property. I need to hear more about that from the land council. So that's one issue. Eleanor, could we go to the next sheet, please? There was concern about some important trees along here. So these white oak trees that are somewhat close to the edge of the road, and the idea is to move the path behind them and stay away from their particular canopy. One thing that I know Rob and I have discussed is where the bike path and the road are really close to each other. It's hard to get a decent grass shoulder or to have anything that's growing in there. So where the path is, only 2 feet off the road, we're unlikely to have, a grass shoulder. So it's going to have to be some different kind of treatment along there. And since we had some general support by all of the neighbors, I think we'd probably like to see if we could move it inboard a little into the properties. It would be within the front yard setback, so it's not, again, impacting buildable area. That's where value comes in. And we've heard that there's, quite a bit of support along here. Rob, anything you want to add on this one?
Just that the commission should know that this is sort of a conceptual extension of what we're currently pursuing and had worked with Mike before he left on, which is the raceway to Somerset improvements, which are basically taking the bite off of the corner at Bartlett and Raceway. At the same time, keeping the Bartlett path to the south side of Raceway, so swapping sides, carrying it up to the Somerset intersection, and ultimately, continuing it on the west side all the way up to Hummock Pond. So this is sort of an extension of that, and I applaud Andrew working with the person that was interested in supporting this. So it's coming together, I think, pretty well. The design for the southern portion connecting to Bartlett Road is near complete. And hopefully this section here will be able to build on what we've been able to accomplish so far.
Hey, Eleanor, how do I raise my hand?
Oh, there he is.
There you go, Bill. That's it.
We can hear you.
Exactly. I would like to, Mr. Chair, I would like to just add on to what Andrew said. And I would like to reinforce the support issue. So all of the property owners along I guess that would be the southwest side of Somerset Lane, are enthusiastically supportive of this, including the Bartlett family. And the issue that we have with the restriction is a conversation that Emily Molden is having with the Bartletts right now to see if there's some type of workaround. But there's another side to that. Council, my council feels that it's within the ability of the Land Council Board to, to grant this for public benefit and so on and so forth. But the board, I think, is very cautious about amending any existing restriction. So they're carefully navigating their way through, and I anticipate, or I really hope that we have a good outcome here. And in the event that we don't, maybe the town needs to consider some type of a taking. I don't think that there would be a lot of pushback, because I think that everybody recognizes the benefit here. And to the point about the separation between the road and the edge of the bike path, I believe that those neighbors that would be impacted the most, again, I've heard nothing but enthusiastic support about this. And the plan that you have before you is more schematic in nature and really just a discussion piece. And when we sort through this, Art is willing to, go ahead and take care of business. Jesse and John Brescher have volunteered their services. If I already said this, pardon me, but have volunteered their services for, any of the necessary legal paperwork along there in terms of donations or what have you for the greater good. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill, very much for this. Does anyone have any questions? I can't see anyone, so
David.
please speak up. Go ahead, Dave.
So I kind of heard mixed rumors about what was going on down there. And so I actually had a long talk with Emily today about that end of the bike path. And so basically, I think there's two pieces of property. There's the 120 Hummock Pond, which is the very end. And I don't, it was their feeling at the Land Council that wasn't an issue already because there was language in the original CR that accommodated the bike path that went down, whatever that is, Milk Street or Hummock Pond Road. It's 15 Somerset that has the problem with the CR, and everyone on her board is for it. And they want to make it happen. It's just how to do it without creating problems with not only just the CR itself, but the IRS, because it's tied up in a CR and it has to do with values of the property. So they're just trying to figure a way how to amend that CR and satisfy everyone's needs without causing issues. So it was my understanding they're working, that Bartlett's and Emily's group are working hard to kind of rectify that. So I think that it's in the works.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem when the roads aren't laid out to at least 40 feet. You run into these things, and this is a little bit of an extra wrinkle. So,
but it seems like everyone's working together to iron out the wrinkle.
Good. I hope so. This is a kind of a no-brainer to attach to Raceway and kind of get that cleaned up as well at some point. Does anyone else have any questions about this? Billy, we appreciate everything you've done. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question to Jack through you?
Sure. So,
Jack, back to that connection from Prospect Street. What about the notion, and I'm asking you because I think that you have some institutional knowledge, at the end of Chicken Hill, where it comes down next to Weldon's property right there. It seems to have grown in. Right. Nobody's done anything with it. And you could go directly right up across and connect right through to Darling Street, cross Darling, and go down and zip right across Wynn Street. Or Saratoga, right. I guess, to Wynn. That portion of Chicken Hill seems to have been abandoned or forgotten. And I think it, that's something maybe everybody should look at again.
Right. I grew up in that neighborhood there, right at the bottom of the hill. So I was there like 80 years ago. They sort of abandoned it and stopped cutting the brush back, stopped using it as a road. Then all of a sudden, somebody decided to cut the brush a couple of years ago, and they opened the road back up. Well, some people didn't like it, so they let it grow. They're letting it grow back in again now. And other than that, that's pretty much what I know about it there. But it always was open to vehicle traffic all the time I grew up there.
Yeah.
And I lived in a little shack up at the top of Chicken Hill across from Ernie. And it was open as long as I was up there. But that's that goes right over to the top of Dead Horse Valley, Nat, as you know, right over to that area that you're talking right now.
I think, Andrew, this came up before Rob was here. It got closed off. I don't believe that this is a actual road, like laid out. I think this was one of those sneaky things that just sort of happened over the years. Jack, I don't think it's an actual road, is it?
No, people traveled with vehicles for years.
Yeah, I know. My father used to go up to Ernie's house that way too.
It is a private road. It's not a public road. So
that is a private road, Andrew, on the GIS or whatever.
It is.
Recorded?
It is, but
Okay.
that came up when the planning board was looking at the subdivision next door, Old Farm Road. That's why we made that allowance for the for the bike path to go through. The bike path could continue down, Mill Hill or within that Mill Hill layout. It would, all of Mill Hill is also a private road. So it would, we would have to do a taking through there to go down. And I believe, I know Mike looked at it. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit steeper down there. I'm not.
Very steep, and there's a lot of water runs down the shell, side and washes out into Prospect Street. Incredible amount of water runs down there, Jack, when it rains hard.
Prospect Street.
So that's what I meant.
All right, I didn't open up a can of.
Yeah, a little bit, an old can of worms, Billy. That's all right.
There's also a cut through on Cato that goes right up to Chicken Hill.
I think that's been abandoned and been sort of part of the agreement was to never open that up, Andrew, wasn't it? Part of this?
Cato.
He's talking about that section of Cato that went up behind.
Yeah, I ride through there. There's a path.
Yeah, there's again, that's all private roads. The sewer line runs under there. And it's not open for vehicles, but it's open. Yeah, you can bike through there and walk down here.
There you go, Andrew, or Eleanor, or whoever did that. That
the one I'm talking about runs parallel, kind of along the left-hand side of the Woodland Hills subdivision.
But I mean, well,
but it doesn't matter. It's not viable.
No, I think that so we don't. Billy got us back to the previous discussion. Prospect Street, the dangerous part of Prospect Street needs to be improved no matter what we ever do with this nightmare here. Because every bicycle is not going to go this way. Even if you offered, water and cookies or something at somewhere else, they're still not going to go that way. They're going to go whatever they want to do. And I think it's more of a safety route to Nantucket Road than it is a bike route. It's more about improving the safety to get there. Yeah. So, that's really how it's sort of transpired over the last 16, 17 years trying to figure this out.
I think what you need to do down through there from where the bike path ends down to Milk Street is put a painted bike lane so that people, when they're driving, they at least know they're driving on a bike lane.
Destroying my life.
Oh, bullshit.
Well, my thought was, now that you brought that up, Jack, is adding more of those sharing stencils, because anybody passing a bicycle on Prospect Street shouldn't lose their driver's license for a while. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's no need to pass a bicycle on some of these roads, but it's very dangerous. I wouldn't want my kid driving down there on a bike, I'll tell you that.
No.
At least have to go by Joy Street for these big trucks, because the big trucks go along there all the time.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I mean, there's curbs that stick out. Lawnmower trailers hit that curb every so often at the bottom of Mill. So coming from up above there. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different problems here. So anyway, Billy, thank you for your efforts for Somerset. Everybody appreciates it. And hopefully this gets resolved with the Land Council and we have a bike path and, you know, before, well, whatever, next couple years, maybe if we're lucky, right? So anyway, thank you very much for that. If anyone else has any questions on Somerset before we move on to the next item. I see nobody. Is anyone have their hand up, Judith, on the other side? Or Christy, whoever's helping me. All right, well, we'll continue to the town area plan discussion. Andrew, do you want to start that real quick for everyone? And then Judith and I will add anything, or Judith will add something if we need to. And
Sure,
Lisa,
well, for some time, we've been having a discussion with the town area or the town association, and they've expressed an interest to do an area plan for the town. It's an area that has a number of upcoming, potential zoning changes and other activities going on. It is something that is designed to help us by having, involved area residents be a part of. The process for that, as you know, comes to the NPDC, and there's basically acceptance of the map and basically the appointment of a work group. Once the work group is appointed, the work has to follow the open meeting law. There has to be minutes. These are advisory groups that are going to be giving information back to the commission, and basically people who aren't on the work group should be able to know what's being said. So this is an initial discussion. So with the full commission, again, I've had staff level discussions with them for some time. We've worked out a number of issues on the map. There is a map in the packet for some discussion. In addition, there was before we knew for sure that there was going to be the town plan, a group of residents around the Lily Pond had asked for, I had suggested maybe there be a special subgroup there. I think now with this effort moving forward, we need to make sure to include that area in the discussion. And then also the appointment process for the work group is something that I think we need to have more of a discussion on. Appointments has been a big topic lately, and I think there's questions about, an adequate process that puts people on notice, gives the commission a chance to look at who the memberships are and to look at the process and make a wise decision. So if we would jump to the map, I can just go over a few little of the areas. I think the area outlined in yellow was always designed to be included. So this is an area of properties that is between the Brant Point area plan. So the boundary actually follows some property lines along there. And it would cut off at, at the end of the highlighted areas. Our original discussions had included this other area of R1 over here on the cliff, but I think that area, may in fact require its own individual plan at a later time. The boundary is coming along basically to include both sides of North Liberty, a section of Westchester. There was some instances of R20, and I think we were generally looking at R1 zoning, so there might be a few little changes along this boundary here. The area that's down in the lower part off of Vesper is some R1, but it's actually completely segregated from the rest of the property. So we might again include that with a discussion with the properties to the south. And then the red highlighted area, which is already rezoned part of Mid-Island, I think, again, some adjustments along that side. So two areas that I haven't had a lot of discussion with the group, but some that came up, and I think other members can talk about this more, is I know an area of the Children's Beach has come up that actually was part of the Brant Point area, not part of the town. So, whether that stays in one or actually goes to both areas might be something we think about.
Right.
And then there's also a discussion about whether the core commercial downtown area, again, shouldn't get special consideration outside of this process. We generally have a working group that's 7 to 9 people. We're not going to be able to have, a ginormous committee with the staff resources that we have right now, with these Zoom meetings, with this COVID considerations. And at least I think, how we treat the core, I think, is really important to not just the town area, but really the entire island. So I think we, may want to have just a discussion about how that area is treated. So that, in a nutshell, I don't know, Judith had a meeting with some of the area presidents, and I don't know if she has anything she might want to add in here.
Sure. I've been on several occasions meeting with the civic leadership or the, Mary, did you want to speak before I did?
I have a comment on the core district. It does not need to precede your comments, Judith.
Okay.
So if you want to come back to me, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. I've had occasion to meet on a number of occasions with some of the leadership of the Civic League, both their executive committee and individuals in leadership there, including some of the folks here, Lee Stepperstein with Charlie Stott and Peter Morrison. And to that end, I met just this past weekend with their full set of leadership among their individual residential associations to try to get clear with everybody how this whole process works, because we've thought over, and Nat's been involved in these talks and Andrew in the past. Our hope has been that they could provide kind of a baseline of involvement, not exclusive involvement, but a way to try to connect into some of the areas where either we have existing plans in place or where it might be a good idea to create new plans in place. And if you're not familiar with this, you may want to go and look on the NPEDC website to see the existing plans that are in place, because we have 7 that have been here now for quite a while. The Civic League has wanted to do outreach and really to get going with this, and we've had to try to put the brakes on a bit because we haven't had the staff, and the COVID situation has made it difficult to proceed. So I've been going whenever I can to try to give them background about this. And at the meeting on Saturday, a couple of things came up. The Brant Point representatives felt very, very, very strongly. They followed up further today, feeling strongly that parts of what had seemed to be in the town area plan might better belong in the Brant Point area plan. We had not been aware that there was an interest in Brant Point and having an area plan, so it's understandable that there hasn't been discussion with them yet. We also had a discussion, someone from Surfside was unhappy that I said that these groups, working groups, have to comply with open records and public meetings requirements. And I've been trying to make many of these points with the leadership over the past many months, but in effect, we now have a lot of growing interest in this overall venture, but it's very hard to get everybody kind of moving in the same direction simultaneously. So what it's going to mean for us, I think, here is typically these working groups will have one member of NPEDC with each of the working groups of up to 7 to 9 people. And that person will be kind of our liaison to work with them. And we won't be, at least I wasn't here the last time, so Nat or Jack or Bert or Andrew can clarify, but as I would foresee it, we won't be acting like immediately on one as opposed to another. We're simply trying to see who thinks they want to proceed to do this work and find ways that they can begin to kind of explore what the issues are in their neighborhood that will help us illuminate the broader questions for the master plan as a whole, and also help us in areas such as Andrew highlighted here, where there's things that we're aware of that we need to deal with that have come up in ATM articles or other kinds of situations that will have a means by which to work with that local community. So that's just by way of background. I have been working closely with Nat, and I trust his guidance here. I've been trying to fill in when he's not around or whatever, but I think it's going to take some work from all of us to make this come to fruition.
Judith, thank you for that. I think Andrew and you, just to kind of like sort of put it in a different perspective of what you said about today versus 11 years ago, Andrew. I don't remember things weren't as tight as they are now. I mean, they had the people in the Surfside, the people in Tom Nevis, the people in Nantucket, and the Brand Point people. I remember vividly meeting exactly where we met on that lady's house on Easton Street. I can't think of her name at the moment, but that was very well organized, but it was the first time we did it. And this time now, with things the way they are today, yes, the minutes taking, and there has to be a secretary, there has to be, a little more, public transparency with these things. But at the same time, and Judith alluded to it with the guy from Surfside, we need to getting everyone sort of understood as to what this even is. I mean, this isn't about, traffic and how many cars are on Nantucket and all that kind of stuff. This is about, their zoning that they have, future land use issues, educating them as to what the zoning allows, what the future might bring for this area, that kind of stuff. And then they can move on to different ideas. When Children's Beach got brought up, Andrew, first thing I thought of is how much the town is involved with leasing and the different uses that happen down there versus the residential side of it. I mean, you made a point that it could be included in both. I think that's a really good idea. Because, it's a residential area that has commercial use. That's not going to change. There's always going to be something down there, whether it's the boat ramp, whether it's something to do with who's going to be leasing the snack bar in the future, entertainment, licensing under the, down there. There's all kinds of different things that could happen down the road. So having input on what gets allowed makes sense, but like, I can understand their concern with that. As far as the CDT, Andrew, did you mention that? You did, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue that you're right. I don't think that should be part of the downtown area plan because if it is, it has to be explained differently and looked at completely different than the ROH and the other residential zones. What was your thought on that, Andrew, as far as moving forward?
Well, I'm not saying it should be in or out, but I think you all should think about it. And I think, there might be pros and cons to including it or not including it, or having maybe an expanded group or a different group. But I think, it's clear from our master plan, it's clear from everyone's interest in the town that, the downtown is everybody's concern, really. And
right.
There's all kinds of plans being considered down there. We've done a lot of rezoning down there already. And, obviously this is surrounded by this residential neighborhood. So of course there's going to be concerns about it, but our other areas have been more clear in terms of, Tom Nevers is what it is. It's got clear boundaries with usually, typically conservation land. This is a little bit more of a complicated area, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I brought up individual concerns with their little neighborhood, whether it's the Lily Street or whether it's another part of the downtown or town, ROH district. It has to be understood the level that we can go here. This is not about changing, parking or, meters or, all those issues that come up over the years. It really isn't about this. This is more about, usage and zoning and what's allowed and what isn't, and heights and all that kind of stuff. Those are the issues that need to be understood. And especially, Andrew, when we talk about the boundary part, especially towards Crooked Lane direction, Cliff Road area, that to me is more important because of all the stuff that we've had through planning with the R1 zoning and the transitional zoning that we've talked about, transitioning to R5 and things like that need to be part of this work group. So,
Mr. Chair, Nat?
Yes, Lee, go ahead.
It's Lee here. I just want to make several points. Henry Terry is our president. He's on board. I'm here. And I didn't know that Mary Longacre would be joining us, but she's part of the proposed working group. So there's three of us here. Point one, we're good neighbors. We will work through Andrew to be good neighbors to everybody alongside of us. I think the Brant Point people think that we're doing some kind of Shanghai action. Was not meant to be. When we drew the boundaries, we tried to be logical. And I think Andrew's put a finger on Children's Beach. It's much more than a recreational area in a residential zone. It's part of the downtown recreation, Francis Street Beach on one side, Children's Beach on the other. Okay, I'm appealing to Andrew to apply the wisdom of Solomon and propose to you, the commission, a map that everybody can agree upon for approval, presumably at your next meeting. With that, let me just make a few quick points. The red hatched areas we included so as not to have islands that didn't belong to the town that sort of surrounded parts that did. Andrew and I talked about Cherry and Bear Street, and because those are historic streets, we said, yes, those should be included. And then I just drew the boundary so as to encompass Bear and Cherry and some of their extensions. Again, we leave it to Andrew to decide just how that's going to work. Same with Vesper Lane. The houses along Vesper Lane we thought might be part of the town, but if they're not, they're not. However, as we come up to the R20 islands, those include houses on the other side of the street, such as Westchester, which is to be included. And we think that logic says both sides of the street make more sense than just one. We did draw the boundary down New Lane so as to include New North and Old North Cemetery. We've got the Quaker burial ground included. And those are comments, not fighting points. And Andrew, I hope you're listening and marking up your map. Lily Pond, I'm well aware that there are some drainage issues and access issues to that park. If somebody from that area wants to pay their dues to the town association, they're more than welcome to join our working group. Henry, how's that? And as far as the core is concerned, by the way, Henry lives in the core. yes, it is the commercial downtown district, but it's also where everybody is headed in their parking circulation. It extends out into other parts of the town association through something called the cultural district. And with thinking in terms of what comprises the town, our history, our recreation parks and beaches, our food and our restaurants and our hospitality area, but also all those streets on which people live, right into what's marked as the core. So with that, I'm going to ask Henry, since I'm usurping his authority as president, if he's got anything more to say. And then we're volunteering to work with Andrew to come up with a map that is agreeable to Brant Point. And if there is a Mid-Island group, I'm not sure there is, to them and for your approval, because we want to move forward. And yes, we're well aware of what it takes to meet the open meeting law. I go to those informational sessions at least once every 2 years. That's it. Henry?
Thank you very much, Lee. Henry, are you good?
I'm good.
You are? Thank you so much for being here, Henry, by the way. Andrew, can I just ask you a quick question? What's the yellow again?
Hey, Nat,
Is that-
Mary's had her hand up for about an hour.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't see her. Let me move my screen. I'm so sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
That's right. Thank
Apologize.
you, Nat. So as Lee said, I am a member of the town association. I did participate in the committee that proposed this map and the boundaries, but I want to wear a different hat, if you'll permit me for a minute. And that is more of a coastal resilience hat. Speaking for myself, I like the idea of acknowledging that the core district is different than the entirety of the district, but I do not want to see the waterfront broken up into 4 or 5 different pieces. And so what I would suggest is that perhaps we look at either a waterfront district or a commercial district that stretches from the border with Brant Point to the border with Mid-Island along the shore and encompasses the commercial activity as well as the waterfront. I don't know, as Andrew said, I'm not saying it should be separate from this planning district. It may be that within this district, there are enough major differences that we do have to address that in the plan. But I just wanted to say that if we only look at the core, the wharves and the square defined by Broad Street and Main Street and Center Street and South Water, it really is, it's fragmenting too much, especially from a coastal resilience perspective. So that's what I wanted to offer there. Thank you.
So Mary, can I just ask you a question through, I guess I'm thinking of Andrew and you right now. Andrew, I think what she's saying, at least what I'm gathering, is a sort of a FEMA sort of line and a CDT boundary sort of in the middle, like the FEMA line versus the CDT, I think is what you're kind of saying, Mary. Would that make sense?
In
other
general,
words,
yes,
like, you know what I mean? Like Center Street is obviously not a flood zone, but that's part of the CDT.
Right.
So you're saying having sort of like, a line, say, on Easy Street, Washington sections, something like that.
Yeah, I would include Washington Street, Great Harbor Yacht Club, and then just butt up to probably North Beach Street where there's some commercial activity or whatever is not in the Brant Point zone already. And so that there's one district along that core area rather than having to deal with Brant Point and then a piece of town and then a piece of core and then another piece of town and then a Mid-Island piece. And, it's just a little bit, I can't imagine how you would get those pieces to work together if they're not already part of one group.
Nat,
Lee,
this
go
is
ahead.
Lee. There is something called, Andrew, help me out, the Waterfront Overlay District. We have an overlay for the waterfront, and whatever we do should be consistent with that zoning overlay.
That's true. Yep.
Harbor overlay, right, Andrew?
Right.
Okay. Welcome, Mark. I see you there. Maureen, you got to unmute. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mary, thanks very much for your comments. And I just want to add that the Conservation Commission, obviously any with the waterfront and all of that is within the Concom jurisdiction. So having the areas that are along the waterfront united is much better from the point of view of managing both the conservation issues, which of course are largely the same as what the coastal resiliency is working. So I just want to totally second what Mary was saying.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we can assume. Oh, Judith, go ahead. Sorry.
Two thoughts. One is I wonder, Andrew, if we do better to have kind of a full set of maps of all the areas that we're thinking of working in, so we find out where there's issues of overlap or that kind of thing and are clear going into it. I don't know the answer to that, but I just wanted to ask that in keeping with some of the last comments, because I don't think we should be proceeding piecemeal without a good understanding of that. The second thing I want to raise is the membership in the working groups. Lee, I agree with you on many fronts, but I'm going to disagree on this. We're appointing to a town committee, so we shouldn't just be appointing people associated with resident committees. We really have to be open to a variety of people throughout the community, and there may be some people who work downtown but live someplace else. There may be people who don't own homes who aren't in any of the associations. So I have felt strongly that we need to put out a call that will invite people of all different backgrounds to express an interest in working on the master plan as well as the individual area plans in order to really make a fair and transparent process. I know many of you here, the four of you here are already working, and I think we should definitely be including people that have already gotten a good start on this. And I'm not saying to the contrary to that, but I really think we need to have some consideration about how we're going about the appointment process before we assume that we know we're going to do the same thing for every one of these. So for example, the waterfront area, it might make some sense, I don't know, Maureen and Mary, to have somebody from Concom or from CRAC that would be members on that working group, and they might not actually live in that area, as an example. So I think we need time, and we may be getting too worn out to do it tonight, but I do hope we'll have a chance to have a discussion about how we go about appointments to be sure we get a good shot for everybody's input.
Understood. I think we should, this should be continued. This issue should be continued to the next meeting as far as how this interacts, how these sections. But I think that Lee's point with the boundaries, we already know that this area is going to be, whether it's in or out or how it's in can be decided a different way. I think the boundaries are the key for this meeting as far as what we're going to decide. Andrew, that yellow, I wanted to ask you about that before. Is that old LC? Where are we at there? That's Cliff Road sort of down. Oh no, that's the right side of Cliff Road. Okay, so what was the purpose of that again? You might have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, that's the area between, so it's R1 zoning, and it's between the edge of the Brant Point. So
okay.
So right. we don't want to create a gap, I don't think, like a lopsided street. So, again, we want that area to be included.
Okay, got it.
And it goes roughly up to Vineland. I think it's Vine
Cliff.
Vine Cliff, yeah. So, and then, you know, shortly after that, the other street network that's more up on the cliff is up there. So I think, you know, for consistency, we want to include that. And we did do some initial work down at the bottom with the ROH zoning change. But that's part of the R1 that basically we want to look at throughout this area.
Okay.
One thing about the waterfront, I think, if I'm not wrong, and maybe Maureen knows, but I think there's a harbor plan update that's being run by the Conservation Commission, isn't there? She's on mute, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Maureen.
No, I'm not aware of that, Andrew.
Okay. I just saw an RFP about Nantucket and Nantucket Harbor update, and I believe that that's one of Jeff's projects that he's moving forward, but I can confirm that by the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be something to reach out to him, Andrew, and find that out as well for the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts about the boundaries, any of that type discussion, so that we can give as much input as we can for staff, and so that we can come back with a clear plan? I do really think that your Children's Beach issue, Andrew, is important. Figuring out a way to have that as sort of a, I don't know what you want to call it, double sort of dual roles in Brand Point versus the core, the town plan. Okay. So is that it? Is everybody good? We can move on to the next item. Andrew, you have enough information with Lee, right? With Judith's
yes,
points.
so I'll certainly will work with them and try to hammer out these last map issues. I think the appointment process, I think what we want to introduce is some sort of advertising or something that will take some, I guess, gauge some additional interest. Is that how we would proceed with that?
How did we do it before? I don't remember, honestly.
Well, we asked there to be, you know, it depended on the different neighborhoods, but we wanted a cross section. For example, we didn't want it to be all year round residents.
Yeah.
Not include summer residents. We wanted a balance of people. We wanted a balance of objective, you know, of interests. And, you know, in some cases we looked for, you know, again, some of the, like in Tom Nevers, it's really homeowners and, you know, seasonal and year round. They're not, I don't think there was a huge group of renters at that point, but, you know, people with different perspectives. Also, I mean, it would be good to know who on the commission is going to step forward and volunteer to be on the group. There needs to be one of you or two, at least one who's the main person, one who's an alternative person, to step forward and help with this. You know, as I've pointed out, we have staff issues, you know, where we have two key positions that weren't funded in this budget cycle, in addition to the ongoing vacancy of Mike Burns. So,
yep.
Andrew, if I may, just a thought for BPAC and other positions. I can put something up on the website and I can give it to Florencia to blast it out there on the various social media platforms, and we can put an ad in the paper soliciting interest, letters of interest, if you like. It can go through me or it can go through whoever you want, but I can help with that process as I've done it for other types of appointments linked with the NPDC before.
I think it's important that we do this, even though we're making, you know, we do it with the at-large. Do we do it with the bike committee, Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, then that's, to me, that's the level that, yeah, I think we should follow that. Judith, do you agree with that? You're muted. Sorry, I'm reaching out to you, Judith, to get your thought.
I would just ask to be sure that we get enough information that we know what somebody brings to bear, so that,
Yeah.
do they work in the area? Do they live in the area? Are they a
The criteria, of the
Yeah.
ad has to be, you can't live in Sconset and be on the town area plan work group. I mean,
Well,
that's not
maybe,
discriminating. It's
but I
just,
don't know, but I think so, Eleanor, I think that would be good to check that through with Andrew rather than just use the standard template, because I think I'm looking at Mary's picture here and thinking of when you were here and had applied just not that long ago. But
right.
we should kind of give some idea too about if we can estimate anything about workload. I don't know. I don't mean to make it too long and too complicated, but I think to have at least sort of a job description of what is involved here, so people who've never seen this kind of thing before would know, and then to have a little bit about their personal or professional background and interest and their contact, it would probably be useful.
Wendy
Right.
has her hand up, Nat.
Yes, Wendy, go ahead.
Yeah, two quick things. Just I don't get what the scope is, but I certainly want to pipe up as a core business owner, depending. This is sounding crazy and huge, so I would say try to narrow it, but certainly business needs to be, having a voice if it's that big of a net. The other thing, I just want to apologize. My laptop might die, so I'm going to have to dial in a minute, and I just wanted to alert everybody about that.
So now this would be a good time to appoint Wendy to the group.
Okay.
Not what I meant. Thanks, Andrew.
I'll second it.
No, that's, and Wendy brings up a good point. This is what we're trying to avoid, is having this process look bigger than it is. Once it gets established and the people are meeting, it will sort of take its own shape. That's the way it worked before. I mean, the town didn't even have a website, I don't believe, when we were doing all this before. I mean, it's like we're 20 years ahead of 11 years ago now. So
Yeah, Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I don't even remember. I mean, it's just so much different. So everything was on paper and, met at people's houses, and, that's the way it was. So,
Mary has her
yeah,
hand up.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary. I
Thank
flipped
you.
it back the other way.
If I may make a suggestion, the town association talked about working on the map, but I think the other part of this that Judith was bringing up is, what should the composition of the committee be? Do you want to have, one rep from commercial or two reps from commercial? Do you want to have one tenant or two tenants, or, one representative from a major property owner, or so many representatives from the town association, or somebody from the waterfront, or somebody from the Concom? And if the NP and EDC can decide how many spots are available and what groups need representation, then I think that will help people to know that there's room for them on this committee.
Yeah. Andrew, what Mary's bringing up made me think of that guy, Scott. Was it Scott? What was the guy's name from NIR? Was very involved in the Brant Point area plan, but I can't think of his name. I don't know if it was Scott or a different guy, but they had representation. And I think what Mary's bringing up is something that we talked about the restaurants and some of the other commercial businesses. There's going to have to be somebody that's, like a Wendy, that understands it day to day, as part of this working group. So when we put the ad in the paper, or we reach, however we do this, I don't know how we're going to break that up, but I think that just the people that would put their name in, we should be able to figure that out ourselves.
Yeah, so I think if you give examples that are pretty wide ranging, then who you pick within a given committee may vary from one place to another, but if you give examples, that helps people see themselves in the picture, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And obviously meeting in season. It was a big issue in the past, Andrew, and I don't think that's going to be changed. And Henry, do you agree with that? I mean, we couldn't meet in the winter. I mean, you just couldn't. There's nobody was here. So that was a big issue with the people that want to have a voice but are not here. May through October, May through September. So that's another thing that's going to come up, Judith, as far as some of this stuff goes.
Well, but now we have Zoom.
Well, that's, I don't even really like to say that because I'm waiting for this to end, but it doesn't seem to be happening. But you're right. Now you can do it anytime you want. So maybe will help us, that we can do Zoom legally and in January. So that's a good point, Judith. I'm sorry that you made that good point, but it's true. So, all right. Well, thank you for everyone's input on this. Christy, do you have anything? I know this is your first go around with this. I mean, do you think we're headed in the right direction with the downtown stuff? And I know that you understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think echoing what Wendy said, it's just going to be really important to have the businesses involved in the conversation. But I think that'll be a good conversation for next meeting. I definitely was writing down a lot of notes to follow up on and learn more about this. So I'm sure I'll have more questions next time.
And Andrew, I think that Bear Street is good. Lee, if you agree, I think that makes perfect sense. By the way, I didn't bring that up earlier. Yes. So we'll move on to the little section about the economic development role that Leslie wrote up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Lee.
This is Lee signing off. I'm leaving your meeting. And
Lee,
I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Lee, we love you. Thank you so much for helping. You're great. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye, Henry.
Okay, Andrew, where are we at here?
We're
page 61.
So this is a continuation of the discussion. We had a short discussion at the last meeting about economic development role of the NPDC. And I think it was important. I wanted to include Leslie. She had been on a committee working at least with some of the town officials, Amy Baxter, and I've also had a chance to have a talk with Christy, and I talked to her about, I think one of the most important points she made was about, who is the point person for some of this? When there's an issue about economics, who is that point person?
Right.
Excuse me for interrupting, but Eleanor's still sharing her screen, so we're watching her type the minutes. It might be helpful to not share the screen.
Hi, Eleanor.
Come on, Mary. I was enjoying watching your type.
There we go. So anyway, Leslie, I included the report from Leslie. She might want to talk about that. And then if people had specific ideas, that they wanted to share, again, we're sort of all ears about that on, what different things we might consider. Beyond the activity that we've already done, that's already embedded in the past master plan, like all of our rezoning to industrial and specific commercial areas. I mean, all of that was done with economic development in mind. And I'd like to hear some more specific things. This comes up every once in a while, and it's a generalized discussion.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear some more specific ideas. So anyway, Leslie, or if I could hand it off to her.
Sure, thank you. Included in your packet, as you see on the screen, is a timeline of recent economic development activity that we've been involved with at the staff level, all related to COVID-19 and the economic impacts that caused for local businesses. We were really involved with talking. There's a group of town staff involved with talking to the business owners, especially the restaurants, the retailers, the construction industry, about, what can we do to help during all of this. So that
Right.
started, in mid-March. It's been continuing through until, mid to late June. I expect that it'll pick up again after the summer. I know that Janet Schulte is working on a new economic impact survey to send out to the business owners to see. I haven't seen the survey, but I think it's going to ask, how was your summer? How was it impacted? What can we do going forward? Was it what you expected? Was it better? Was it worse? So I think that'll be really interesting information for us to have to see, what else we can do. And there may be some zoning changes that we should talk about or some other things. I've heard, and you've probably heard as well, a lot of positive feedback with the outdoor dining options that were created. Those were all done through emergency orders issued by the Board of Health. So if we wanted to continue some of that going forward, we would need to make some more permanent changes in some way. So those are all things that, we really need to think about and discuss because timing is important with town meeting.
Thank you, Leslie. I agree with, this is really good to see this breakdown. Of course, we were forced into this with COVID and your involvement, Andrews. I mean, everyone. I mean, it was quite a spring, and watching all this evolve. I think, just real quick, my own take, I can't see anyone's hands because we're still looking at the screen, Eleanor, but I think the biggest thing is looking at the traffic flow from having the streets closed. I haven't heard, other than some snarky comments from individuals here or there, I think it's been pretty positive with Oak Street, Upper Oak, I call it, whatever, you know what I mean. And my biggest skepticism was North Cambridge. That turned out to be, I was wrong. I can't believe that didn't impact more than it did. I think the Wilkes Square turn with straight jobs and vehicles that can't get downtown the right way can just zip down there and turn left and boom around the corner by Lobster Trap, which I kind of didn't think that would work so well because people don't really know about these things, but it seems to be working fine. So I think our role, Andrew, in my opinion, is more of a supportive role to the individuals that are making this stuff happen, whether it's Amy, whether it's select board, whether it's police department, through traffic safety, some of the things like that. There's a lot of stuff that we could weigh in on, but I think, like Leslie said, this is going to pick back up. There's going to be a fall sort of, okay, what did we like? What did we not like? What works? What didn't? And what are we going to do next year? Because that's going to happen. There's going to be a call to possibly do something permanent or some sort of sidewalk dining options, things like that we would never have thought about had it not been for COVID. So that's my little quick thought with economic development for our side of it. Does anyone else have any questions? Christy, sorry, I didn't see a hand. Judith, I'll get to you. I saw you there. Apologize. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, I, as mentioned by Andrew, I'd spoken with him earlier a little bit about this, and, kind of being on the ground and seeing what businesses needed was a supporter, a contact person, especially during kind of this time of chaos. I know that nobody could have prepared for COVID, but not knowing who to go to with business questions, it was, do I ask Amy or Roberto or Plus? And nobody really had like that one person or department. So that's why I was thinking like some sort of role, or if that's a department within Plus that focuses on economic development. Pre-COVID, I know this was a topic last summer when we had issues with businesses handing out lotions and samples and fraud. Again, there was nowhere to really go and issue complaints. And so that, again, just kind of like if there was a department or a person that was a business support role, I think kind of pre-COVID and post-COVID, there's a need for this type of thing. And then just thinking about our economy as a whole, we're focused on tourism and construction and, kind of what is the next big thing and how can we support that? So I don't know if that's having that as an agenda item on every meeting or once a quarter where we can really sit down and discuss, as a regional planning, how are we also looking at economic development and supporting, what our economy needs and what our community needs. Thank you.
Like that information the other night on your meeting with the IT lady.
Yes.
So, what's her name? I forgot.
Karen
That was really interesting conversation. I watched that. I couldn't believe it. Judith, yes.
I second Christy on the second point she made, that I know we have the immediate needs to be addressed, but I think if we don't really use this opportunity to think about the bigger picture in some way to add diversity to the economy, I don't know if it'll be a pandemic the next time, but I mean, we're in a world with risks of climate change, with more kinds of illness and other things coming our way. We're honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're looking at a major recession, given the aftermath of the kind of problems in funding basics and the debt we have at the federal level. So I really think that we need to get ahead of that. And for some of these things, I think IT is a good example. I was at the hospital sitting in the Schmidt waiting area, thinking about IT people we know and love, or also just thinking about how many opportunities are there if somebody's going to find a place where they want to do something innovative and at a scale that we might be the right size for some kind of a upgrade of IT, to see how that would work for the new economy, that we should really be thinking about that. So I'd be happy. My best thinking would be in the IT area by strengthening the infrastructure. I think that's something everybody's realizing our need for, with the potential for commuting at a distance and distance ed for the schools. I think too, if we really take that to heart, it would mean possibly better education for like community college and college level kids who may otherwise not be able to afford to go to school. But if they were able to live here and commute electronically, it might be a different story. So I would think we have a population of people with that kind of expertise. And I don't know, Christy, if you could tell us kind of what it would take to put something together to bring it to the select board, if others agree that that's worth doing it. You may be doing it at the select board or through the chamber some other way, but if we think that's a good idea, what kind of specs would we need to develop, or showing would we need to come up with in order to make it worth the select board's consideration?
Go ahead, Christy, with whatever you want to.
I mean, I think looking at what other towns are doing, I know, kind of what brought this to my attention was the fact that we missed out on applying for grants because we didn't have an economic development kind of person or coordinator. So, Janet Schulte and myself would both try to reach out to, state legislators and other places that were doing grants. And really, without having a point person, we couldn't find a connection or a way to get Nantucket kind of as an applicant. So I think looking at some of the other smaller towns on the Cape that have these economic roles, and seeing kind of how their, what their role is and what their responsibilities are. And then I think, talking to other select board members, we've been realizing, kind of the impacts of COVID on our business community. And it's something that we've all said, voiced our concerns with, that we need to, think of how we're going to pivot. Every business has pivoted, and it might be the whole island that needs to pivot. So I think I can speak for the board, or the majority of the board, that we're interested in things like investing in technology, and finding ways to make our economy more diverse.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Sorry. Maureen, go ahead. Thank you.
Right.
Got it. There you go.
I just wanted to agree very much with what, do you hear that?
Yes, it's like you're in a stadium. I think you have to turn off your phones.
Well, if I turn
Thanks.
off my phone, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Just mute your computer, Maureen.
Yes,
So that
there you go.
Can you hear me at all?
Perfect.
Now you're fine.
Perfect.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this will work then. How's that?
No, that's good.
Oh, that's better than an echo. So what I wanted to say is having a plan. Wait, it's doing it again, isn't it? Damn it.
You got to just mute one thing.
Well, I've muted.
you need to talk through your phone and mute your computer speaker.
All right. Sorry. Maureen,
All right.
it's
How's
okay.
this?
HCC.
Can anybody
There you
hear
go.
me?
Yes, talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
All
good.
right.
I just
That's
fixed your
good.
mute.
All right, go for it. All right, so I think what we've seen that's made life so hard is that COVID hit so fast and we didn't have a plan, and we're still seeing the after effects of that, and that we still don't have a national plan, and everyone was kind of left to their own devices. And so I think everything that Judith and Christy mentioned is really important. And the thing I would like to underscore is when we go forth with planning, we keep in mind, and obviously we have been, but keeping in mind the health issues and our the need to balance the health of the island and our economy. And I think we've done a really, really good job so far, but I just want to make sure that we keep that in the forefront and look at, some of the things, because one of the things that worries me about how we're doing things now is, the tables right on the sidewalk, and, they're all have their masks off and they're eating and you're 6 inches from them. And, so looking at what we've done that's worked, but also, keeping the health issues in mind as well. So.
I think some of the numbers that are going to come back from businesses this fall, I mean, we find these things out. I think that's going to be a telling story. We all get caught up in it's so busy. It looks like there's so many people, so many cars. If I look at the boat numbers, and it's not what it looks like. It's sort of like a stadium emptying out that's half full. It looks full when it's emptying out, but it's really not. So it's that's going to be very telling to get all that information later in the year. Does anyone else have anything? What happened to my screen here? There we go. Switch back to gallery. There we go. Something happened. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead, Andrew.
So, one of the things to think about, and nobody has to answer it tonight, but if there's going to be this economic development type position, is it going to be something in planning? Is it going to be part of town administration? The budget time is coming upon us. Now will be the time to start proposing new positions, or whatever we're talking about. And I don't want to miss the opportunity if there's support for, again, a position in plus. I don't know if that's what we're talking about, or restructuring existing jobs or the senior planner job. But I want to hear some feedback about that. And again, we have a fairly narrow opportunity to do that. So that's, within the next couple months is when we start putting our budgets together.
Andrew, I think Leslie's, with what she wrote up, was pretty detailed, because it happened this year. So, it was, I'm not gonna say it was easy, but it was available. You know what I mean? If we asked for that kind of information a year ago, it would have been impossible to have anything like that. So my thought was, and maybe Christy can kind of help us as the county commissioner to this board, is a sort of a sort of involvement with different topics where we weigh in on items. Like, I don't think we need a position for this. I mean, what would they be doing? I mean, there's a lot of people that don't want any more people to come here and any more houses built and one more car to come on the boat. So it's kind of a complicated discussion when we talk about economic development. It's more about economic diversity and adaptation, really. I think we have to look at it from a slightly different angle. But weighing in, Andrew, when we closed the street by the church for the Sunday flea market thing, not flea market, but farmer's market.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the controversy about that? And we just said, yes, we want to endorse that.
Mm-hmm.
And your cultural district concept became reality. I think we need to more be a supporter and weigh in on some of this stuff more than just having, the incubator. I don't think that that's going to, I mean, yeah, a little bit, but I don't think we're going to be in a role or should be in a role of trying to develop more economic activity. I think it's more about supporting stuff that's, happening or new things that are happening, new trends, dealing with the ferries, dealing with Harbor Place, what's going to happen with Highline, what's going to happen with downtown, that type of thing. All that stuff. I don't think it's more about COVID's making it easy to talk about right now. If we had the economy of last summer this year, we might not be talking about economic development at all. So I'm just being realistic.
Okay.
That's
at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about a subcommittee of some kind. And again, I think there needs to be a process.
That makes sense.
Is that something that, again, if we're looking for new members, we can talk about that for the next meeting, again, about a process and what kind of people we would want to join on that. Is that something that people are still interested in?
I think that's sensible, Andrew. I mean, I see heads going up and down. I think that makes more sense than a staff position.
Okay.
I'm being.
You agree, Dave?
I hate to admit it, Nat, but
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. You say that once a month, maybe once every 2 months. Thank you. No, I mean, I just, we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. As this COVID thing winds down for this season, we don't know what next spring is going to be yet. So I think that we need to stay on top of it. I'm glad that we're talking about it. We haven't talked about it for a long time. Like back when, a long time we weren't. So I think it's a good thing. And especially with the IT stuff has made it a little bit of an easier topic to bring up. I do agree with what Maureen said about the sidewalks, though. I wasn't thinking of that part of it. I was just thinking more about nobody ever would have agreed to restaurants eating in the street ever in a million years unless this happened. So that's a good point, Maureen. So does anyone else have any questions or any input on this economic development concept? Can we have that on the next meeting, Andrew, or is something maybe come back with something about a work group or?
Yeah, we'll have a work group proposal for the next meeting.
Okay, great.
We also want to have Karen come in and talk about the
VITs. Okay, yep. Excellent. That's great. Thank you. So the next item, Andrew, is the bike committee.
I think we need to continue.
Okay. If we don't have all the name and all that information.
Well, no. May I chime in? This is just for our own appointee to take the place of Matt Fee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is not the at-large. We appointed the at-large people a year ago. They're good for another 2 years. That was a 3-year appointment. Right now, we need a replacement for Matt, and they're probably going to have a meeting in the next week or two. They haven't met since February, so we just need an MPDC rep.
I apologize.
And while I'm on the screen, NCTV person, we seem to be on speaker view, and I keep trying to get us on gallery view. Can you fix it, NCTV person, please? I don't know how to do it.
You do it on. It
The
should
way,
be
the
on
way
your
you
right-hand
can
side of the
go to grid view is if you look at the top right-hand corner of your Zoom window, you should see a an icon that has 9 dots. It's kind of a square. It says gallery view when you put your mouse over it.
I only have something saying speaker view, and I have an enter full screen mode.
Click speaker view and it flips over.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go. Okay, 9 dots. So now what?
So when you click the 9 dots, you should be going into your grid view or gallery view rather.
Did that work? I just did it.
It's only going to work for you. I'm not going to see what you're doing.
Okay. Sorry. All right, go ahead.
Eleanor, I apologize for not knowing exactly what was going on with that. So that's on me. I didn't realize that. So this is good. It's obvious now what we're doing. So does anyone have any interest on being on the Bicycle Advisory Committee from the MPNEDC?
David?
Hey, Billy.
Who said that?
Can someone kick Billy off now? Someone else will do it. I'll do it.
I haven't forgotten how to ride a bike, but it's been a long time. Yeah, would you mind, Dave?
I would not.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be great for you.
Yep.
I'll form
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Billy.
Mr. Chairman, I've been trying to raise my hand and I don't know how to use this. So if I can just turn the Wayback Machine. Yes. So the Wayback Machine for just a moment. After your very nice accolades and thanking me for the bike path and yada, 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 I was not so gently reminded that it was not my idea. It was Andrew's idea. And Andrew Vorse is the one that deserves the credit for this. And I just, it's been so long since we spoke about this. I wanted to reinforce this. This all came up as part of the Land Bank Larrabee property acquisition. And this was Andrew's idea. We did the easy, writing a check is a piece of cake. Never would have known anything about it if he hadn't brought it up. And I wanted to give credit, make sure that credit was given where credit was due. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, very much. Thank you. So I'll accept a motion to appoint Dave to the bike committee of the Bicycle and Pedestrian BPAC.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, so Christie moved and Bert seconded, Eleanor. All those in favor? Fritz?
Aye.
Judith? Whoops. Judith, can you hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. You're muted. Sorry, Judith. John?
Aye.
Bert?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Jack?
Jack, you're on mute. I tried to unmute you. Can you unmute?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Jack?
Raise your hand, Jack.
There you go. Dave?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
There we go. He's unmuted now.
There we go. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the end.
Okay. All right, Andrew,
I can hear you.
I think that's his daughter talking. All right, Andrew, the transportation program.
Yeah, we have nothing new. That was on here just in case, and so we don't have any item on that one right now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. So the next item is Andrew's performance review process. We have that in your packet, and thank you, Eleanor, for all your work to get this all out there correctly. Does anyone have anything other than, just general comments. I mean, I have plenty of things to say about Andrew, so I don't want to take up everybody's time. So Bert, you have your hand up?
Yeah, we had the same discussion last year, I think. This survey doesn't seem to apply for what we know about Andrew. I mean, we don't work with him every day and that sort of thing. I thought we were trying to get the human resources person to come up with a more meaningful review sheet for us to fill out.
Well, we were, and if you remember back, I'm sure none of you do, back in February, the initial instructions were sent out to you about how to do this online. And then along came COVID, and so there really wasn't an opportunity to update it. So I do think by the next time, this will actually be available, where you won't have to fill out, the paper form and all that. But again, that was sort of unforeseen at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Amazing memory, Brett. Does anyone else have anything to say? Judith?
I just want to thank Andrew for his leadership and hard work, especially during the pandemic, and say too, I very much appreciate your doing the individual statement of goals and assessment. You did that 6 months ago and you did that again for us now. I think that helps keep us on track as well. And I also want to thank you for laboring with staff cuts and to commend you for helping the development of the folks that work with you, particularly Megan. We've enjoyed working with her on the planning board, but you can see how you keep everybody's spirits up, even though, at least if I were you, my spirits would not always be high given all the things you're having to juggle. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. I echo everything Judith just said. Does anyone else have anything to say before I sort of say a couple words for Andrew? As far as the COVID issue goes, I mean, obviously the adaptation between with the Plus office and with Andrew and Leslie have been through, and Leslie taken on the role of the, I guess I would say, the Plus person on all the meetings, the Board of Health, working with Jeff Carlson at the beginning, how to, the reopening and our being different than everywhere else for a while. There was a lot more work for some certain staff people within the town than there was before COVID, which is amazing. I think that the way the office is functioning right now, being, reasonably open, like we are by appointment or texting someone, tapping on the window, putting stuff outside, how they've navigated this and keeping things sort of moving along has been arguably the best thing, really, when you look at how everything else is, like the registry and stuff like that. I also want to commend Andrew and Leslie for the cross training and the people that are in that office and how many different things people are learning is fascinating. It's great. I mean, that's what we need to be like, because it's not one thing. And when helping the public deal with, whatever they have to deal with in a positive way is a huge plus for us, no pun intended, but it's a great thing. And I certainly appreciate everything that they've done to get us through this and hopefully get out of it. So Andrew, you both of you really deserve an incredible amount of thanks for operating under these conditions and sort of coming out the other side, so to speak. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, could I just say, so I just want to recognize, all of you. Thank you all for your comments and for your reviews. And for those of you who put comments, I appreciate that. I will certainly take any of those to heart. My staff here is amazing. I think all of you who interact with them know that. And you know, there was even today, there was one of the nicest letters I've seen in a while about how our staff treats people. And that's what, you know, that's what we strive for in this office. And I think we have people that really, you know, rise to that occasion. So I think that's really great. And Leslie has certainly been great through all of this. And our building commissioner, Paul, they deserve a lot of credit for much of this COVID work. I have to keep my eye on the fact that it's all working, but they were in the trenches doing a lot of this. So I want to specifically recognize them. I will say, of course, that all this work with COVID is in the current review period. The last review period ended back in February, but that was a productive time for us. Of course, the world kind of turned upside down after that, but in terms of advancing our various projects, I'm happy with the goals system that we've adopted. At our next meeting, I want to review with you the set of goals for this current review period. And again, thank you all. I think, you know, working together is how we move forward here. So thank you.
Andrew, that's, and I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. That's a good point. This is really just through February of 2020. So, but can't help but bring up all of this, Andrew, because it's, you know, I mean, if you don't talk about COVID and what's happened in the last 6 or 8 months, I mean, you know, it's just not real. It's not realistic.
I know.
So thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything? Am I missing anyone over on the other side? Nope, I'm not. So does anyone want to make a motion to approve Andrew's contract?
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's
not.
not.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Dave or was that Bert?
No, Fritz was first, I think.
Oh, Fritz. Oh, did Fritz say that? I'm sorry. Okay. So, so John motioned, Eleanor, and Fritz seconded.
Andrew, is that the right motion?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. It's really, this is really just the annual review and the authorization for the personnel action form. The contract is a separate issue.
Oh.
Okay, my bad.
All right,
Sorry.
so it's supposed to be a motion to approve the personnel action form.
That will be my motion.
And to authorize you to sign it, I think, as well, right?
Yeah.
Right, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that, Andrew.
So with the amendment to have that signed, that is my motion.
Okay. Fritz?
Second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor? Fritz?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
John Trudell?
Aye.
Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye. Here.
Bert?
Aye.
Wendy?
You gotta wait till I say your name again.
I think Wendy's out there on her phone now. Wendy on her phone? Nope, I think Wendy's gone. No, there she is. Wendy, can you hear me?
Jack is out there trying to say aye too, I think.
All right, Jack. Sorry, Jack.
I just feel like I.
Wendy needs to mute.
Yeah, Wendy's on mute. Jack, you vote aye.
Wendy, hit unmute.
Yeah. I can't wait till this is over with this. Wendy, you there? Oh my God, I'm sorry. I see it. There we go.
Yes. Unmute.
Wendy.
She's trying.
We're approving Andrew's personnel form.
Oh boy.
She's still muted.
Asked to unmute.
Somebody text Wendy. Jack, I think I heard Jack say aye.
Yes, Jack, I heard Jack say aye.
About 4 times.
Okay. Yeah.
He said it for, he said it for Wendy.
So sorry. Oh my God. All right. Wendy, you still there?
I think she's having technology issues.
All right. Well, I think we can take this as 10-0. Chair votes aye. So be 10-0. Eleanor.
Got it. No, 9, because we don't really have.
9-0. Right, 9-0. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Sorry for this painful root canal. Okay, so anything else? Other committee reports, etc. Anyone have anything to report on any subcommittees or so forth? Christy, how you doing with Capital? Are you in shock yet?
It's good so far. I've had 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Right now, we've been reviewing the schedule for the year and planning out around when town meeting will be.
Okay. I'm so happy for you to learn all this, because I'll tell you, once you get it into your brain, it's not leaving. So it's great effort. Okay. Does anyone else have anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So under other business, I wanted to follow up on the earlier question. I think.
Oh, Fritz's question?
Pardon me?
Fritz's question about,
so about
what his question was.
Yeah, the former life-saving.
Yes.
Youth hostel.
Yep.
In Surftide. So, I think, as you know, that property is coming onto the market, and Holly has done some research. There is a preservation restriction on the exterior of that. That's controlled by the HDC. It also could be conveyed to a private group if that was a desired outcome. And in terms of the use, so Fritz, what you said was right. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use. By special permit, it could go to another pre-existing non-conforming use, because a museum is not allowed in R20. But it would go to the ZBA. It would have to be lesser in scope in its impact to the neighborhood, which is probably something that could be met. But it's a possibility right now under special permit for a museum.
But special permit to ZBA.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think that personally, I think that once the public finds out about this, that there's going to be a fundraising effort to preserve this. I mean, this has to remain what it is. I don't see this. This is bigger than the Boy Scout camp land. This is a big deal.
Hey, I take exception with that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what I'm saying, Bert. You know, all right, equal to it. How's that?
Mr. Chairman, I will say that the preservation restriction is quite strict about, additions and other things onto the building. So,
how much land is there? They got that little building in the back. There's a lot of land to the front. How much? What's the lot size there, Andrew?
It's not big enough to be divided, I can tell you that.
All right, good. All right, well, that's good. Okay. All right. So anything else? I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Dave, do you have a question?
Yeah, just one quick question. I meant to ask it earlier and I didn't. Whatever happened with the Wall-Winnett bike path?
Federal grant, Andrew?
Right.
Process?
So,
still in the works?
Still in the works. It just hasn't, no new action has happened, but I do believe that we will get funding for that. It will come forward. But
and we voted for that 360,000 or whatever it was, right?
Yes.
town meetings. Okay. Is this something that Derek Schuster knows about, or is this kind of go fly over him and go somewhere else?
I believe he does know about it, and I'm not sure if we, if we do get funding, we may have to amend the tip to include it, but again, that's something that we can easily do if the funding moves forward. So I believe Mike did keep him apprised of that. So.
Good. All right,
Matt?
excellent. Yes, Fritz.
I was surprised that Dave wasn't asking about proposal to, for the Wauwinet to Quidnet bike path.
Boy, I'll tell you,
Why not?
Quidnet Road is gonna be the last thing Andrew fixes before he leaves. What a mess, Andrew. We gotta get that straightened out somehow.
Oh, all right.
What do you mean before he leaves? The only place,
Well,
the only place
that's
he's
because I
going.
know it's gonna take a while. Okay, very good, everyone. Thank you all for coming and being involved in all this, and for Lee and the other people involved. Judith, I want to send a special thanks to you for helping make this process work with the area plan. Really appreciate you.
Motion to adjourn, Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Fritz seconded. All those in favor by roll call. Fritz?
Aye.
Judith? She said aye. I just saw her there. John Trudell?
Aye.
Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella?
Aye.
Maureen Phillips?
Aye.
Bert Johnson?
Aye.
Jack Gardner?
Aye.
And Wendy Hudson, if she's still there? And she's not. Chair votes aye. Thank you